You are listening to part 25 of our series, 7 Medicines, The Wise Woman Way, with Susan Weed at Time Monk Radio. Hello, Susan. Welcome back to Time Monk Radio.
Hi, Jim and I. How have you been since I talked to you last week?
I have been nearly perfect. How are you?
Wonderful. Well, let's see. Last week and last month, as a matter of fact, we were very much involved with lifestyle medicine, the fourth river of the healing. And we've been talking for months now about the 7 rivers of healing, and we've gotten to the one that to me is, the most important, and that's possibly why I put it right in the middle, and 7-4 is the middle one. And I talked a lot about different aspects of lifestyle. We talked at the very basic that lifestyle is about nourishing and tonifying. We distinguish between nourishment and tonification, that nourishment actually builds the organ or the organism, and that is taken in discrete instances. So any one episode of nourishment is a full episode of nourishment, but the tonification builds the functioning of the organ or the organism so that it requires rhythmical repetition, and that any one instance of tonification is not adequate. And then we talked about specifics. We talked about, in general, some dietary specifics. We certainly talked about vitamins and minerals and how we get those important things and why we don't want to take pills. We looked at a variety of herbs that can be used for nourishing and for tonification because, of course, I'm an herbalist, and partly because if I leave the world anything that is truly useful, I believe that it is nourishing herbal infusions. It certainly grew up out of my understanding of how Juliet de Berkeley-Levy used herbs. Up until I was reading her books, I, like the vast majority of people, made herbal teas. And I got very erratic results with those herbal teas. And once I read Juliet's book, and she said you have to use a full ounce of dried herb, and you have to steep it for a minimum of 4 hours in boiling water. And I started doing that, and I went, oh, my goodness, this totally changes how I relate to and the effects that I get from these plants. So as I worked with making what she called a standard brew, I changed it to infusion because I thought standard brew was kind of unsexy and clunky, and infusion is much, much sexier. And then I began to realize that what we really wanted in our infusions was the nourishment, the nourishing herbs. And I began to look at and to pursue the nourishing herbs, which is very, very different from the way that I was taught herbal medicine and from the way herbal medicine is still taught. And that is that when we're learning about herbal medicine, we tend to have our attention focused on the plants that are the most poisonous, the plants that stimulate a lot, the plants that sedate a lot. And stimulus and sedation is in the 5th river. We're still in the 4th river. So right away, herbal medicine takes on a drug-like character as it's generally used and as it's generally taught, because we're using the most poisonous, most dangerous plants, and with over 10,000 herbs in current use worldwide as herbal medicine, we certainly have a lot of choices for dangerous herbs. And I then chose to focus in on the least dangerous herbs, the herbs that, as one author in his herbal said, I can prove to you that chickweed, one of my nourishing herbs, chickweed is not herbal medicine. It's never killed anyone. And he's not being facetious, and I'm not pulling your leg. In order to have a drug cleared for sale, you must establish how much of that drug it takes to kill half of the animals that you test that on. It's called the LD50. We'll talk about it more when we talk about pharmaceutical medicine, the sixth medicine. But if an herbalist is saying this couldn't possibly be herbal medicine because it has never killed anyone, then I think you're getting my point. And how really strange, weird, and just, against all teaching it was for me to say what herbs are nourishing. How can I get nourishing herbs into my daily diet? How can I make herbal medicine not something that we just think of when we have an aberration from health, but something that we understand promotes optimum health? I'm not really thrilled by sickness or disease or injury. And again, I do not mean that facetiously. I mean that my personality does not draw me into those situations. As a matter of fact, my personality throws me away from those situations. I can't even watch movies in which there are injured or seriously sick people. It doesn't work for me. So I have a prime directive, I believe, to keep people healthy. I'm much more interested in helping people maintain the health they have. I'm happy to help people regain health if they have an aberration from health. But what I want is for people to not just regain health, but then to maintain that health for as long as they want. And certainly, when I was writing my book, Breast Cancer, Breast Health, The Wise Woman Way, I really wanted to focus on maintaining breast health, not what can I do if I have breast cancer, although the book is chock full of ideas, and there is an entire chapter on radiation therapy. And if you decide to use it, what herbs can support you through that and get you through it even better? Chemotherapy. And again, what things can support you through that? Surgery. And so on. But to me, one of the most important parts of the book is my AntiCancer Lifestyle. And this occurs in the front matter. It's before I even start. In with Chapter 1, I have called you over to the side and said, psst, hey, listen, here's the goods right here. I want you to know that there's a way to live, there's a lifestyle, that there is a fourth river of healing which steers you clear, insofar as anything can steer you clear of cancer. There's certainly no guarantees when it comes to cancer, and please do not think that I am in any way guaranteeing anything here. Not for you, and not for myself. I say an anti-cancer lifestyle is not a rigid set of rules that we must follow. Instead, an anti-cancer lifestyle is a safe space filled with your favorite ways of nourishing your own health and discouraging cancer. Cancer actually thrives in a two-ordered situation. So relax. Let chaos add to your plan now and then. There's a long list here of 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14 things that I do that I call my anti-cancer lifestyle, and then a 15th thing about things that I generally do avoid. Were I to be diagnosed with cancer, I would continue to engage in all aspects of this anti-cancer lifestyle in addition to any other herbs, any other remedies, any other surgery, radiation, chemotherapy, whatever I felt called to use. But I would keep right on with my anti-cancer lifestyle. And again, let us remember that at the very beginning, when we talked about the 7 medicines, that I said that I had ordered these medicines according to the likelihood and the severity of harm. So the first 4 medicines are unlikely to cause severe harm. If they cause harm, that harm will be easily reversed. Once we move into the last 3 remedies, the last 3 medicines, then we have far more possibility of causing harm. So I said there are several ways that we can approach this. Perhaps the most conservative approach is try the first medicine. If that doesn't work, go on to the second medicine. If that doesn't work, go on to the third, and so on. So that if we wind up doing surgery, there we are, we have tried everything else, and it didn't work. Another way, which is a little more, let's try something a little extra here, would be, if there's a problem, try the first medicine. If that doesn't work, add on the second one. If that doesn't work, add on the third one. So you're still doing the first and you're still doing the second, and so on. So that if we get to surgery, we are still doing all of the other medicines. And I also mentioned the global approach, where we could simply say, this is it, I have this diagnosis, I choose to break and enter right now, I'm going to do everything at once, I'm going to do a global use of these 7 medicines. So when I say this is my anti-cancer lifestyle, but if I were diagnosed with cancer, I would continue to do these things. That's what I mean. That I would not have to stop my life, go to the first medicine and start there, because I'm already engaging in serenity medicine as part of my life. I wouldn't suddenly have to stop and say, what is my story? What's going on? Because I'm engaging in story medicine as part of my day-to-day life. I wouldn't have to say, let me find an energy healer, let me think, do I need, some distance healing, do I need some homeopathy? Because I already include mind medicine, energy medicine in my daily life. I wouldn't need to say, oh my goodness, should I change my diet? Because I'm already eating the best possible diet that I can be eating. So let's look at the specifics of my anti-cancer lifestyle. First, I stay in touch with my own daily and seasonal rhythms. We talked a lot about rhythm last month when we were talking about tonics and how important rhythms are to our health, and a bow to my mentor, Jean Houston, who really drove this home to us, that rhythm is one of the most important aspects of health, and that modern life cuts across the natural rhythms both of dawn and dusk, of spring and fall, giving us light at all hours of the day and night, cutting through the seasons with central heat and central air conditioning, so that we could, if we wished, and many people, whether they wish or not, are simply in a situation in which they don't honor their daily rhythms. And so I ask people dealing with cancer or dealing with not wanting to ever deal with cancer, how can you be in touch with and honor your own rhythms? What do you know of your rhythms? Have your rhythms always been the rhythms of school and work and someone else? Very interesting scientific studies where we take people and we put them in caves where they have no clues as to when it is daylight and when it is night and when it is spring and when it is summer. And we find that the vast majority of people do not create a 24-hour-a-day rhythm, or the kind of standard, what we might think is normal, is 16 hours awake, 8 hours asleep kind of rhythm. In fact, people left to their own devices choose different rhythms. What's yours? How can you honor it? As part of that, I sleep in total darkness and be sure to get into the sun every day. Now, of course, when I say to people, I sleep in total darkness, there's always someone in the audience who says, do you block out the moon? No, I do not. As a matter of fact, there is a window, a south-facing window through which the full moonlight pours on nights when the moon is full. And I believe that that is part of my rhythm, to give my body that light during those 3 full moon nights. I do know, however, that a very important brain chemical, melatonin, is produced only in total darkness. And that means not even a telltale light from some little device that is charging up. Really, truly, in the dark, for the deep, restorative sleep that we need to be in optimum health. Similarly, 15 minutes in what I call the noonday sun, and that's from 11 to 1. You could even ooch it down until 2 o'clock, depending on where you are. 10 to 15 minutes of that sun on skin that has not had any sunblock put on it is going to certainly not get us any vitamin D here in the cold and dark months. Nonetheless, I think it is important for our psyche. What do I do on days that it's cloudy? I go outside and I feel where the sun is. It is, after all, up there. All right, it is out there. The sun is shining. The sun is a thermonuclear reaction that goes on all of the time, whether I can see it or not. So if it's cloudy, I still go out into the sun. I'm told all the time, you could get a sunburn even on a cloudy day. And so I know that I am getting something from the sun, even on those cloudy days, that helps me keep to my rhythms. I eat one meal at the same time each day. This is another rhythm that I establish for myself. Many of us live lives in which we grab breakfast as we can, have lunch when it's convenient to have lunch, and hopefully get some dinner, but goodness only knows when. I see this with people that I visit. I see this with people that I know, that it is rare nowadays to have set meal times. I was fortunate enough to grow up with pretty set meal times, which did begin to devolve as my parents got busier and worked harder. It was almost impossible for the whole family to sit down to breakfast together as I became a teenager, although that is what had happened throughout my early years. But my parents did their absolute best to keep the dinner hour with their children, and I too have chosen that to be the time that I maintain, and that there is a certain time that I eat my dinner. These 3 things have been a lot about rhythms, acknowledging rhythms, maintaining rhythms, and even creating rhythms. The 4th thing that I do is have emotional outlets. And I'm not even sure how to talk about this with people. An emotional outlet does not have to be going to the buy it and break it store in Japan, although that's a great idea. And there are stores in Japan where you can go in and you can buy plates, cups, glasses, and then you go into another room and you smash them, you throw them. You are protected against flying glass. You don't get hurt, but you get to buy it and break it. That's an emotional outlet. But so is singing. So is playing a musical instrument. For some people that I have met, very vigorous exercise like running gives them an emotional outlet. Painting can be an emotional outlet if you pour yourself into it. Praying can be an emotional outlet. These things can also be a way that we keep the door tightly shut on our emotions. So we ask each one of us ourselves, are there times and places every day when I check in with my emotional state and where I have the freedom to express whatever emotion I need to hear myself expressing so that I can nourish myself through that. And the fifth thing then is to choose friends who support me. And they may not be a direct place where I have my emotional outlet, but they support me. They support me in feeling whatever it is that I need to feel. I had a difficult situation come up, perhaps inexplicably difficult, and I might even say that to myself it was somewhat inexplicably difficult, in which I was at a place where I was asked to do less than I thought I was supposed to be doing. And I didn't like being asked to do less. It was a difficulty for me to be asked to do less. And I felt very, very supported that I had friends that I could talk this to, that I could tell people that, I was in this situation, I felt so uncomfortable, and that my friends would support me, not support my change, but support me. I remember after I finished my menopause book, and I had felt driven to write the menopause book, and knew that I was going into menopause and needed to have it all written down so that I could refer to it, because everybody told me I was going to lose my memory. Well, I sent the book off to the printers, and I literally got in bed. If I could have gotten under my bed, I would have, but there's a lot of stuff stored under my bed. So I got in bed, and I pulled the covers up over my head. And a friend of mine came to visit that afternoon, and I called her back to the bedroom, and she said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I am hiding." I said, I have just sent this book to the printers, and it's just, it's a terrible book. It's just going to be awful. I'm going to be so embarrassed. And instead of trying to argue me out of it, she said, "You're probably right." Now, you may not think of that as support, but think it through. Think about how supportive it is to have somebody just agree with you, even in your darkest moment, because that then gives you that little thing that you can push against. If you say, boo, 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 and somebody says, oh, cheer up, then you have to be the champion of boo, hoo, hoo. But if you say boo, hoo, hoo, and they say boo, hoo, hoo, you get a chance to champion cheer up if you want to. Supportive friends, they're really important. And I have artistic outlets. Now, this should not be confused with those emotional outlets. Those emotional outlets are really about my emotion. A woman who lives around the corner from me runs a periodical called The Art Times. And of course, I live in Woodstock, and it's a town of 6,000 people, and 6,005 artists, right? So, and probably even more, because many people have several fields of art. And she and I were at a party one evening, and she said to me, in my capacity as the editor of this art periodical, I had a great many occasions to tell people that they should not try to make money from their art. And she could see that I was looking at her quite astonished, and she said, for many people, their art is their emotional outlet. And getting your emotions out in words or, in art, it's not necessarily art. It's for you. It's something you're doing for you, and it's a great thing to do, and it's a great way to do it. But it isn't really necessarily art, because art really looks out toward the other. Art is for the other. It's a story told for others to hear. So we can double up on the artistic outlet and the emotional outlet, or we can have an artistic emotional outlet and an emotional artistic outlet as well. How do you nourish the artist in yourself? The artist in yourself was having no problem at all when you were 3, 4, 5 years old. You can give the artist and a child of that age any kind of colors and any kind of paper, and they are going to color, and they are not going to worry if you give them a drawing with lines about coloring in the lines. How do you support your own artistic talent? Do you have children, grandchildren that you can color, not worrying about the lines with? Do you need to set up some time of your own? Having artistic outlets is part of my anti-cancer lifestyle. I also know that I need lots of appreciation and approval. So I make sure that I get appreciation and approval. It's also known as love, but it doesn't have to be, like sexual love, but appreciation and approval. Are you getting enough appreciation and approval? These are important, very important ways that we nourish ourselves. I exercise. We talked about that. We've been talking about that. It's part of lifestyle, exercise, and I change it around. So I do Tai Chi. I do yoga. I go to the gym. I do the weight circuit. I have weights casually placed around the house so that I can pick them up and do a little free weight while I'm talking on the telephone. I walk. The gift that I chose of the many, many gifts right immediately when the disaster of my barn burning and all of my animals being killed, the gift that I chose first from that was a walk every day. And it used to be that we would sit at Talking Stick because we needed to be near to the animals, and as soon as we were done with Talking Stick, the animals would be let out. And I realized that wasn't going to be happening, and I had too much emotions going on in me to sit still for Talking Stick. So in that respect, the walking, the actual exercise, became my emotional outlet, became the way that I could literally move my feelings. So I encourage you once again to not let that exercise word frighten you, but to see what can I do on a daily basis, remembering that if it's only 5 minutes out of every hour, that's actually probably better than running a marathon for maintaining long-term health. And I've got nothing against you. If you want to run a marathon, that's a great thing to do, and what approval and appreciation you are going to get. I have a full body massage at least once a month because things can get held in my muscles, and I want them free and moving. And that passive receiving of the massage, and we're going to be talking about that as we get into stimulating and sedating as we move into the fifth medicine. And it is a contentious point. Massage therapists say, no, it should be part of nourishing. It shouldn't be part of stimulating, sedating. Things are fluid. Certainly, if we were talking about getting a massage every single day, we would soon see how stimulating indeed it is. And this is why, for me, once a month is the right rhythm. I do my yoga practice once a week in the evening, and I urge people to reconsider doing yoga in the morning or doing any vigorous exercise in the morning. It is the time that we are most likely to injure ourselves. And again, as I say, I like to change what I'm doing day by day, so I don't want to be doing the same yoga practice every single day. We talked about emotional outlets. We talked about artistic outlets. Let's talk about sexual outlets as well. There is something about emotion and art and sex that certainly goes together. And if you can find an emotional, artistic, sexual outlet, more power to you. But if not, be sure that you have sexual outlets, and that includes masturbation. Whatever you have been told, it was all nonsense. We now know that masturbation is healthy, that the lover that you're going to have from beginning to end every day of your life is yourself. So be kind to yourself. How would you feel about a lover who never treated you kindly, Do you treat yourself sexually kindly? There is a little bit more of my anti-cancer lifestyle, but there is not a little bit more of this show. So we're going to have to wrap this around till next week. I don't usually leave you hanging, but what a good place to leave you hanging talking about sex.
I agree.
So we wish everybody green blessings, and we'll be right back with you next week here at Time Monk Radio.
Thank you, Susan. And this concludes part 25 of our series, The 7 Medicines the Wise Woman Way, with Susan Weed at Time Monk Radio.